Democracy Day, analyzing the president's speech and taking a look at governance in 1 year across board. And don't forget, you can get your voice heard on this matter. You can join the conversation. Just hashtag Nigeria Democracy Day ST or join any one of us in that. While you, of course, mention us, we'll see what you're speaking about. But let's go over to our studios in Abuja. It's, Dr. Junaid Mohammed joins us from there, Northern Elder. Thank you for joining us this morning from Abuja. You heard the president's speech today, and give us your perspective generally first on the speech.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, for giving me the opportunity. I heard part of the speech while I was on my way to your studios here in Abuja. And frankly speaking, what I heard did not impress me overwhelmingly. I thought some of the issues touched were touched for the purposes of PR, public relations. But in terms of addressing the fundamental issues that are confronting and challenging the country, I cannot say I was impressed. It seems to me that one, the speech was too long. A lot of what was said could have been said in 1/4 of the time. Secondly, a lot of the issues that were jam-packed for PR effect, not because of the sincerity behind what was being said. Thirdly, some of the issues are being articulated in a very vague manner. Some of the statistics that are given for the purpose of creating confusion. And on the whole, the impression sounds to me more like the campaign for 2015, for which it is now anathema to speak. But it is anathema to speak about the 2015 simply because the president's handlers would like to monopolize the space, the political space, from now until 2015, when he is due to declare his intention in a very controversial manner to be a candidate again. So I, frankly speaking, didn't find much to celebrate. Besides, I have my own views about celebrating a so-called Democracy Day. First, 29th May was not the first day we had democracy in this country, and to attempt to give the impression that 29th May was so monumental, such a very important hallmark, that the whole nation should stop, not go to work, just to celebrate what cannot be celebrated based on the reality on the ground, in my view, was simply not fair. And while there are points, of course, I feel it is justified. In fact, some of the things that were done, like naming the University of Lagos after Chief Abiola, should have been done earlier, because definitely Abiola is a national hero. He's a national hero of democracy. So whether he was a participant in the first or second or this republic, the fact of the matter, whether he gave his life, not because he wanted to, in the course of struggling for actualizing his own mandate and making it a democratic mandate. So I think it's very important that that was done. But again, as the previous speaker indicated, it would have been better to name a national symbol somewhere not outside the southwest, where Abiola happens to come from, because Abiola was certainly a nationalist, and he wasn't the kind of person who was given to some of these primordial excesses. And it would have been better to name, for example, the stadium in Abuja, because in addition to being a politician, Abiola was also a sportsman. Or naming some of the ministry buildings, for example, for commerce and industry, because Abiola was a very big titan in the national economy. I would have preferred that. But now that the government has done what it has done, better late than never, and I think it's better something than nothing.
All right. Take a look at one sector of the economy here, because he talks about health, education, power. What sector are you not happy with? Because you say you were not overwhelmingly impressed with this speech. Pick one sector, look at what they've done and what he said, and give us your perspective on that.
Mr. Moderator, in public life, you hold a politician or a public servant accountable to what he says he was going to do during the period he was canvassing for votes. My understanding of what has been happening in Nigeria from the time President Goodluck became acting president and then became the suspected president after the so-called elections of last year is that he had made categorical promises to the people of this country when he was being sworn in. And as far as I'm concerned, none of those promises in the sectors you enumerated, power, education, health, none of these have been actualized. All we have are promises and empty talks about potentials. If what he has promised has not been delivered, you cannot blame anybody for saying that this speech is empty. And as far as I'm concerned, I've seen nothing on the ground. From my own personal example, I come from a so-called low-density area, a so-called GRA in Kano. For the 34 years I've lived in that area, in my house, I've never seen the power situation as worse as it is now. And telling me that there is improvement, or there's a promised improvement in power situation, is empty talk. I also have children who are going to school, from primary school to university. I know the challenges they are facing. I know the challenges I am facing in making sure that they are in school, they remain in school, and they are getting an education which is fit for today's global market. They are not getting that kind of education because the government is not funding education enough, and because the government has an attitude towards education which is, frankly speaking, Byzantine and archaic. I am by training a medical doctor. So even if I'm not in active practice now, I know what it means to have a healthy, health delivery establishment that delivers health services, whether free or at affordable prices. And I believe Nigeria has the resources to afford free education and free health services for the whole of Nigeria. Now, as the situation now stands, we are not even capable of immunizing our own children. That to me is a national disgrace. In addition, I'm also aware that nearly 10 million children of school age are not going to school. The Al-Majri system, which has now been introduced by this government, cannot solve the problem because the Al-Majri system so far has not taken even as much as 1,000 Al-Majris. So if you are talking of 10 million children who are of school age, who are not going to school, telling me that you have introduced Al-Majri schools and as such that will be a solution to our problems, I think is being very uncharitable and it's attempting to play with the intelligence of Nigerians. As far as I'm concerned, something has started, it needs to be pursued. But that needs not to be encapsulated in a speech that lasts 1 hour. 1 hour for speech to celebrate one democracy event, because democracy in Nigeria is still an event. We are not there yet. If we are not careful, this democracy can be terminated because it has not taken root. I hope it doesn't come to that.
Anyway,
as far as I'm concerned,
just allow us huge challenges
and we cannot deceive ourselves.
Excited that you just talked about the Al-Majri Model School. And if we look at the history of those children, how it all started, and with some people setting up what they call the Makaranta and all the Arabic and Quranic schools there. And no one has ever bothered, not even the states or the regional governments of the North has even done anything about it. But for the very first time, we're getting to see the government at the center taking it upon itself to establish a school and take these children off the streets. Isn't that commendable?
Well, with due respect to you, moderator, I don't know how much you know about the system of Al-Majris, because it's a whole new system encapsulating facts of anthropology, sociology, and education itself. I can say I'm a product of the so-called Al-Majri because I had gone to Al-Majri school in my own childhood. And I know, as far back as the 1950s, there was an attempt by Kano Native Authority to rationalize the system of Al-Majri schools, introduce modern concepts of education, and give these people a much more diversified system of education. So to say that this is the first time it is being analyzed is completely wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. I come from the system, and Kano has the largest number of Al-Majris of any state in Nigeria or in West Africa, and I know for a fact there were attempts to do that. Kano state could not continue because after it started, the system was taken over by the North Regional Government of those days. After the Northern Nigerian government took over, the system could not continue because a tribal coup came and decapitated the leadership of Northern Nigerian government. The entire leadership of the North was eliminated, in addition to Northerners who are also who happen to be in power at the center. So I think you are not being correct in saying that this thing was never started. It was started by somebody, but in a very epileptic manner. And that is the bane of policy, not only in the North, but in the whole of Nigeria. We start something with so much fanfare, so many statements, so many promises. Somewhere along the line, a year or two, it is forgotten, and somebody comes up new into the government and decides to come up with something, which again, as I indicate, is nothing but a PR undertaking. It sounded to me, the speech was more like the campaign of 2015 has commenced.
Well, sir, with due respect, you've talked about, you said that it did not just start for the very first time. That's talking about the Almajiri system of education and an attempt to, is it rehabilitate them or introduce some form of modern education, as it were, did not just start. But you also seem to be proffering excuses as to why it cannot or did not continue as at that particular time. Shouldn't we then say that this is truly one remarkable achievement, because there could be 1,001 excuses not to have continued, but despite it all, they have been able to make the system continue?
Madam, you and I don't have a crystal ball. This thing has started, and others started before. You cannot tell me that you are definite it is going to continue. So I hope with all my heart that this thing is going to continue. But to say that somewhere it started and it was an excuse not to have continued, I think is to play games with history. As far as I'm concerned, people had done this before, but the bane of it was that there was no element of continuity. I would like this thing very much to continue, and I would like it to be on a bigger scale. I am telling you that there are more than 10 million children today who are of school going age who are not going to school. If you are blind to that, then there's nothing I can do about it, because how many children are there? I would like the government, whichever government, state, local government or federal, that has this initiative to really do more and make sure that all those children who are being wasted by not going to school, because denial of education is a child abuse, whether institutional or by individuals. It is a denial of their life chances, and we must make sure that we stop this wastage of our own population. Initially, when the debate of these boys who are not going to school and who call themselves Albanjiri started, people decided to primordialize the issue and say, oh yeah, only certain parts of the country have this problem. It is not our problem. Now, for every child who goes to bed without food, for every child who is unable to have an education, at least up to secondary school level, I believe it is a loss to the people of Nigeria, to the entire country. So as far as I'm concerned, something started, it could not continue. You could not call that an excuse. Some people lost their life. You are telling me it was an excuse. What are you talking about? Madam, I have been an employer of labor. I have had to meet a payroll. I have also been in government. I've taken policies. I've been in two branches of government, in the legislature and in the National Assembly. You cannot tell me that what I said was not important simply because you think killing other people does not matter as long as your policy goes on.
Also, with very due respect, is there any way the president could have presented his scorecard for 1 year without exactly sounding like as if he was campaigning for 2015?
Again, we are talking about cost purposes. A democracy day is not a day for the president to present his scorecard. The day for him to do that will be either during the budgetary process or during celebrations of the National Day when he was sworn in. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't have to be a democracy day. Democracy day ought to be a uniting effort. Bring all Nigerians, including his colleagues who are in government, in politics, who are in the legislature, the judiciary, and in the executive branch. From what the events preceding the National Assembly, the National Broadcast itself, it's clear that he is not happy with even the speaker who made the speech about how the government decides to pick and choose what elements of policy to implement and what laws not to implement. As far as I'm concerned, it is important for there be harmony between the executive and the legislative branches, especially when they are controlled by a single party called PDP. If within a single party, they cannot put their acts together and then, lead us in policy making and making sure the country comes as one on a single day like this, then frankly speaking, I see nothing to celebrate about.
So Mohammed, just hold on a while because you spoke on a number of issues. Well, Dr. Doyon Kugbe joins us now, and former presidential spokesman. Let's get him to respond to some of what you said. You heard him say, talk about the president's speech. It looks more or less like a campaign for 2015. There's lots of public relations going on. He talked about some empty talk and so many perspectives from him there.
Well, Dr. Junaid Mohammed is not a stranger to me. He's an elder of mine, a senior professional colleague, and interestingly, a man that I've had the privilege of sharing an hotel room with. So we know ourselves very well. But this morning, you know, I am totally disappointed.
Why?
I feel let down that Dr. Junaid, in spite of his celebrated academic background and political survey, will come to national television and the first thing he says is that this is a political campaign. It is ludicrous. You know, now, you know, you are appropriating and reprobating at the same time. You know, a president, number one, he complains about the Democracy Day. You know, it is not Jonathan that, you know, made this, you know, a public holiday. This was something that Jonathan administration inherited. Number two, you talk about the president smokes for 1 hour. What is your business? A president wants to address his people. A president has a passion to talk to his people. A president has things that he wants to communicate to his people. And you sit down with a jaundiced opinion. You know, I know Dr. Junaid Mohammed very well. He's a very passionate, you know, an emotive person. You know, I mean, if he says that he sees nothing in the broadcast that is for 1 hour, then, you know, I begin to wonder whether Dr. Junaid Mohammed actually needs to change his pair of glasses or move closer to people and see what is going on. He criticizes, he talks about power. Now, yeah, you know, Goodluck Jonathan and Sambo administration came in about a year ago. All right? Goodluck promised that there will be power. But, you know, Dr. Junaid Mohammed knows very well, he's an intelligent person, that you don't purchase power like you purchase a toilet roll or a car in a garage. Now, if you say that increasing, you know, when Goodluck Jonathan came into government, the power generation capacity and capacity of the country was 2,800 megawatts. This was carried to 4,400 megawatts in February. Unfortunately, because of certain problems in Kanji, not anybody's fault. Years of non-maintenance, you know, there was some dysfunction in Kanji, and the thing dropped to 3,600. Today, we're generating 1,000 megawatts, much more than we have ever generated in the history of this country. For the first time, Nigeria has invested over $4 billion in gas pipeline, you know, to be able to supply gas to over 10 you know, NIPP projects that have been done in the country. And this man comes and, you know, people, you know, there are some people, no matter what you do, no matter what you say, but because they just have a fixation in their mind, they are not going to see anything. When there is light, Dr. Junaid Mohammed will still not see it.
Dr. Fukwe, I don't think that it would be right for us to, you know, attack personalities in the sense that he's not.
I'm not attacking personality.
He's not the first person who has said that there is no electricity. I mean, or who cannot see the electricity.
But Mark, I've just told you, these are facts that can be checked. All right, you know, when Goodluck came into power, fact, go and check it. Generating capacity of Nigeria was 2,800. All right,
it's a fact.
Now today, as of February, it went to 4,400.
1 minute, sir.
Today is 3,006.
Do you also accept that it's a fact that for many Nigerians, electricity supply in their homes has been on the decline?
Yes, you know, I mean, there are local issues, there are local problems, but nobody ever told Nigerians that in 12 months you have power. You know, there's a lot of work that is being done. If you listen to that speech carefully and in a manner that is unbiased, you see that a lot of work. Government has done over 3,000 kilometers of transmission lines, costing so much money. Now, you know, look, there are 10 power stations that are in the process of being built. Most of them are 80% completed, right? But it was not Jonathan that started them. I mean, it was started during Obasanjo's regime. Yar'Adua came, halted them. Jonathan, brought them back and, revitalized them and started. Unfortunately, there are locational problems. These power stations were located in places that were totally far away from the gas pipeline network. So government now has to are you not in this country? Government had to declare an emergency in the gas sector so that they can put in money and carry gas into these power stations that have been built, but they cannot function because they don't have power to power them. Is that Jonathan's fault? When things are done, you can criticize. I have no problem with that. But when things are done positively, it should be acknowledged. These things that I'm telling you, I'm not a technician. These are facts that I have myself as a private citizen gathered. You may not immediately have power in your house. I mean, in my house, I live in Lekki. In fact, it is terrible. But I cannot tell you that there has not been some marginal improvement. There has been marginal improvement, and this will be a steady thing. It is not going to happen in one day. It's going to take time. Now, if these 10 power stations come on stream by God's grace, that is an additional 5,000 megawatts. I see them coming into power. I mean, coming effective in about 12 months. If you add 5,000 to 4,000 that we have now, 9,000 megawatts. We've never done that before. No government has ever done that.
But from what some of them think that power generation, yes, it may be on the increase, but in terms of distribution, because remember there are three aspects of it. You have generation, distribution, and transmission. And so they think, yes, you may generate it, but
can I tell you
distribution is a problem.
And I spoke to the Minister of Power. When the power went to 4,400, there were immediate problems of offloading that generation because the transmission lines were archaic, many of them were defective. But these are years and years of sectoral neglect, and decadence. Look, Nigerians, I can understand. We are all anxious. We want progress quickly. All right, but we have to be rational and reasonable. If you have a government that is lackadaisical and sleeping, then you have a problem. But you have a government that is acting, that is taking steps, and the government is telling you, this is what we have done, these are our problems, but we are going to overcome that. And somebody stays in Kano and says that it's a campaign towards 2015. I find that absurd and ridiculous.
He's a Nigerian, and well, in other words, this argument has always been about 2015, back and forth from opposition as well as those in government.
What in that speech suggests 2015? What in that speech?
Well, I'm quite sure he's entitled to his opinion, but again, if we'll bring it back to the argument which he has brought, that is looking at the speech, let's take away the 2015 aspect of it. He talked about education.
Yeah, let's talk about that Almajiri education. He said this was a program that was started before and was mismanaged and abandoned. All right? Now, he says that, I know for a fact that, that which is correct, there are about 9 to 10 million people, children, out of school in the north. Now, tell us, there's no way you can put children in school, there's no way you can educate them except putting them in some form of classrooms. It takes planning, it takes, putting investment, it takes, training the teachers. You cannot train 9 million children, 10 million children in 3 months. You cannot accommodate, but you have to start from somewhere. And by the way, Dr. Mohammed says he's been in the National Assembly, he's been in the state legislature, he is a respectable and a veritable leader of the North.
Which you have confirmed? Yes,
which I'm confirming even till now. What has Mohammed done in Kano all these years that these Almajiri children, he even said he went to Almajiri school. So in all these years from his birth to this present stage, he has, what has he done constructively with, with all his influence with the governments in Kano to help these children? And somebody now comes with a program, and all you can do is this is a campaign program. It is. I don't want to talk about it.
He also talks about the fact that, because I think that's a standard. If you want to measure what people have done, you measure by what they said they will do. He talked about the president's transformation agenda. And in that agenda, maybe you could tell us about that, from the way it's done and the projects and programs coordinated by the National Planning Commission. Because there are people who have talked about it, some of them don't even understand it. And so how do we measure from what he said he would do with that agenda and what he's done so far?
We take it sector by sector. I've just told you a few things on power. It's not over. This kind of program cannot allow you to go through all that. See, there is a silent revolution that is taking place in the agricultural sector. I am a bona fide citizen of Nigeria. I have been involved myself in the politics of this country for over 30 years. I have seen government. I have even worked with the president myself. This is the first time that I am seeing that concrete steps, positive steps, things that are worthy of commendation are being done on agriculture. Today we have an agrarian revolution that is incipient. It is just starting. People outside the shores of this country are already seeing it. People are coming to Nigeria and even saying that the Harvard School of Agriculture should come and learn and see what is happening in Nigeria. In the next 1 year or two or so, we will have capacity to produce to produce and process all the rice we are eating in this country. That will in itself save nothing less than $4 to $5 billion. We are already exporting cassava chips. The president said in his speech that by the end of this year, we will have exported 1 million tons of cassava chips. Is that not a transformation? Is that not, making the rural economy to grow? Now, in the ports, before, it takes you 30 days to clear your goods. Now, today, you're doing it in 7 days. They are planning to make it up to 48 days. The earlier speaker who came here said, we're clearing the ports so that we can import. Which country doesn't import? There's no country that is an island. We must have port activities. Is it not from importations that government also derives some revenue? And if you can import, who said you cannot export? But if there's a clog in the wheel, neither can you export nor import. When people criticize, people have to employ some intellect. Don't just come and campaign and just to campaign of hate and hatred. It's not right. The aviation, look at the aviation industry. Look at the aviation. We have about 22 airports in total states of dilapidation and dereliction. The things have collapsed. But today, repair work, reconstruction work is being done in at least 11 of them. And 4 new international wings are being opened. Yeah, and these are transformation.
But some of the criticism about that aviation sector is that, why renovation? If you spend about, 34 billion for 32 billion for renovation, what happens to the master plan? What about adding the second or the third phase of the master plan rather than just renovate, which is more or less papering over cracks?
The airports as we had them are no longer serviceable in the 20th century. Look at the local airport that where Arik parks. I mean, it's a shame on a country. But then you see, also government and people. Government is limited in its scope because if you cannot break down the whole place completely and then start to build another one. What they are doing now, I've seen about 3 or 4. Port Harcourt, I've seen Lagos, I've seen Abuja. It is very, very befitting. These are transformation issues, and there are things that are becoming obvious, and we can see with our own eyes.